All right, thank you so much for staying with the Monday Report. This is the town hall session. Dr. Hilary Barichoka, Governor Bomet is with us, and a former lecturer and also a high school teacher. He tells me he's been in classroom for 17 years. He's with us here, so he has vast experience. Janet Mudhoni-Ouko is also here, education rights activist and former CEC Education, Nairobi County. We're speaking about the schools that are reopening in the next 35 days. We spoke to a cross-section of parents just before this. Here's what they had to say.
Mzazi wa mtoto wa grade 4 na watoto wetu walirudi shuleni sasa takriban miezi miwili iliyopita, na iwapo wameweza kuwa darasani kwa muda huo wote, mimi sioni haja ya watoto kukaa nyumbani as long as mikakati iliyowekwa na Wizara ya Afya itazingatiwa.
Serikali inasema mambo ya watoto kurudi shule on January, na mimi pia ni mzazi, mtoto wangu wako shule. Lakini kuongea ni ya ukweli ni kuwa mimi siko tayari kurudisha mtoto shule. Kwa sababu vile mambo ambavyo inaenda saa hii, huu ugonjwa sio kushuka unashuka, unaendelea ukipanda, na ninaona ya kwamba kurudisha mtoto wangu shule January itakuwa ni shida kuu, na nitakuwa nikiweka maisha yake hatarini.
Na ile kitu serikali inasema ndio watoto watarudi, lakini hawatuhakikishi kuwa hii school fees yao tutatoa wapi. Maanake kama sisi wanabiashara wale ambao hatujaajiriwa, wengine sasa yetu ni kibarua, hatuna ile kitu tunasema tuko nayo ya kuwarudisha watoto shule, lakini wao wanasema watarudi. Maanake serikali inasema itasimamia, lakini tunaangalia wale wengine ambao walipeleka watoto wao shule. Okay, serikali imesimamia. Kama haijasimamia, hata sisi tuko na haki gani? Ati tuna uhakika kweli serikali itasimamia?
All right, keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, #Monday Report. We'll also sample some of them. Dr. Hilary, I'll start with you on this. Schools are reopening January 4th. In your own assessment now as a governor, and also keeping in mind 17 years as a teacher, are we really ready?
Thank you very much, Trevor. And you have indicated we expect schools to open in January. But even before we talk of opening in January, I think we should be doing assessment on where we are standing at the moment in terms of the positivity rate in the country.
Yeah.
So as much as the government has made an announcement that schools will be opening in January, but I think the safety and the lives of our children are very, very, very important. And there are indications, even countries which have opened schools and they have closed after resurgence of COVID-19. So if the current trend continues, because our positivity rate is very high, over 15%, so if the same continues in the next 1 month, then personally, from my own opinion, I think it will be very difficult to open schools in January, because that will mean exposing our children to a lot of risks, and even the teachers will be manning the schools. So the practicability of that will depend on how we perform in the next 1 month in terms of controlling the spread of COVID-19.
Okay.
Otherwise, as it stands, it is just a statement that we'll be opening schools in January. But I think life is very, very important, so we need to be sure of that.
Okay. Janet, what do you think? They've already given a date, actually. It's the 4th of January.
I think we are standing at a place where we've had a chance at a partial opening, and therefore I'm believing that tonight the government has lessons that it has learned from the partial opening. And so by the time the government is talking about opening in January, I am sure the government is coming from somewhere. But then again also, I think generally in the country there is an agreement that really children cannot stay at home forever. There is need for us to really see that maybe COVID is going to be with us for longer than this. And then it is an opportunity for us to sit down and ask ourselves, what are the losses that we are going through? And I think now as we sit here, we're talking about in Nandi County, for example, 6,000 girls are pregnant as we speak today. And it's the same in Kwale, it is the same in Nairobi and so many other places. Yeah. We're talking about children as young indulging in drugs. So really, what is the risk? You know, we are looking at losing a whole generation. So I think it's very clear now in the minds of Kenyans, and I think globally, the position and the situation of school in the lives of children as a safe place that can ensure that children are left to be children for as long as they can, as we nurture their potential. So school is the safest place for us to be. So it's good for us now to really move ahead and say, what do we need to do for us to ensure that our children go back to school in January?
Yeah. And Governor, you've been a teacher for 17 years, like you mentioned. Is it practically possible to catch up with the syllabus, given the time we have left?
Thank you very much. For me, as a teacher and also as a parent, I think the issue of catching up with the syllabus may not be a priority. Of course, we are behind already. We have lost almost 1 year. Our schools were closed somewhere in March. We are almost approaching March of 2021, though they have been open partially. But all the same, I, as a teacher and as an educationist, I think there are things that can be done. Of course, time lost can never be recovered.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's very important to know that losing a life, you can never recover. But losing 1 year or even 2 years, we can recover from that. So I think we should put measures in place to ensure that we fast track the coverage of syllabus, which means our learners will require a lot of support. Of course, we are already constrained in terms of resources and even facilities in our schools. So I think as a government, we need to prioritize and inject more resources so that we can have more personnel and work extra hard so that we can recover what we have lost for the last 1 year. It's possible to recover.
So you say injecting resources so that we have more personnel, but we have a situation where teachers who are 58 years and above should work from home. How does a teacher work from home? How does that even look like?
I think this COVID-19 has taught us a number of lessons. There was a time I would imagine that I could not have a meeting with my colleagues who are stationed in Nairobi, but I think through COVID, I've realized that it is possible to have meetings even when you are seated in your office. Similarly, though we are saying teachers can work from home, if they are facilitated and we put in place proper structures, technologies, I think it's possible to still link the teacher and the learners, and learning can continue. The only challenge that we have is the infrastructure. Otherwise, teachers can work from home. I've learned through COVID-19. It's possible to carry on with virtual meetings. It's possible to talk to your colleagues who are even abroad and even teach. So if we can put the relevant structures in place, e-learning is possible, remote learning is possible. So we don't want to expose our teachers who are elderly to the risks, especially if they have to move and interact with people. You know, they are vulnerable.
So but Janet, this is ideal for schools that are in urban areas. I'm talking about Turkana, the deepest side of Turkana. They don't even have simple network. So how will you then have a virtual teaching session?
I think in addition to what the governor is saying, I think not necessarily referring to technology, but how flexible can we be and how innovative can we be? How can we come from the box that we were in before COVID came, you know, for example, and utilize methodologies that really make it safe for everybody? Because I think here the bottom line is about the safety of the teachers and the safety of the learners and even the larger community, because the learners will come from school and go back to the community. But I think the key word here to underline is, and I discussed this when I was opening, and I was like, what lessons has the government learnt, for example? And online learning has really, COVID has brought out the aspect of virtual meetings and virtual learning. So I'm really keen to see what lessons the government has drawn from this opening, because if, for example, a school, like a primary school, for example, had opened 2 classes, for example, that is class 8 and grade 4. So now imagining the other 6 streams coming in, I really want to listen out to, you are opening partially so that you can learn lessons. How are you putting these lessons in place? We are looking at probably erecting tents so that children can study probably outside. But I'm really worried because I'm not seeing movement towards a direction of changing anything you know. So it becomes a little bit disturbing, because I know the sacrifices that teachers have put in here. A lot of them have even been operating with monies from their own pocket, really trying to make things work. So it can only take a supportive government, so that, because somebody can only do this much. So if again you want to push people towards giving, because what the way I'm seeing government is silent now, not doing anything towards adjusting or even to making sure that the protocols that they have issued to schools, they support those protocols. So they want to push this burden again to parents. The same parents that have been staying with children at home, parents are worked up. You know, someone can say that, yes, these are your children, but these are the same parents that have lost jobs. These are the same parents that have, you know, had all this pressure. So it's not fair for government to just sit back and then make an announcement that we are opening in January. Then the next thing you see is a list. Parents are being served with lists. Bring this and bring that, so that that burden, the government is waiting for January so that they can hit parents with this COVID-19. Because I really don't think it is fair, and we must demand some sort of accountability and ownership from our own government.
Governor, what is the way forward now? Because as a teacher, we are faced with a situation where the student-to-teacher ratio is still very high. Now we're going to increase the classroom streams and even try and have them more socially distanced. Also, removing the teachers who are 58 years and above. What should the government be thinking about right now? How can that be remedied?
Of course, I've indicated, Trevor, that it is a tall order on our side. And especially even before COVID, we were already constrained in terms of the human resource, the number of teachers that we have in a school. You can have a school where we have only 2 teachers who are serving under Teacher Service Commission. So it is a challenge, and this COVID thing is not a problem that belongs to the Ministry of Education alone. I think we are risking, just as Janice has indicated, losing a generation. In fact, in the conflict, we normally have what we call a lost generation. People who are deprived of education because of conflicts of war. But at the moment, even though it is not a military kind of war, we are in biological war. Warfare, kind of. So we risk losing a generation. And it's a problem that we can never run away from it. And that is why I'm saying we have to have our priority right. Because everything else, unless we invest in education for our children, then we are doomed as a country. And that is why, as much as we are pressed, we have physical challenges that we have as a country, but I think it is very important, because once we open schools, already then the few classes that have been opened, teachers are already facing challenges, because they have to spread classes, and probably if a class of 30, you may have to have 2 classes out of that splitting, meaning the number of teachers have to double. If there were 10, then they have to be 20. So all the same, that challenge is our challenge, and it is our responsibility as a government to direct the resources to education. Of course, there are competing priorities. Health is also here. We have to treat our people. We have to take care of our health workers. So despite those challenges that we are facing, I think we cannot run away from this problem. We have to find a way of ensuring that our children are safe in school by investing in infrastructure. We have to have even temporary makeshift kind of classrooms so that we can spread the learners to ensure social distancing. We have to ensure that we have enough number of personnel. So even if it means doing a budget and giving Teacher Service Commission a budget to employ more teachers, I think it is necessary, because safety of our children is very important, and we cannot risk crowding classrooms in our schools. So we cannot run away from that.
Let's bring up some questions that are coming through from our viewers on our video. Let's bring up the first one.
I think it is better even to open the schools and observe all the measures which have been put in place than closing school with the pandemic, which we don't know when it will end.
The government, or through the Ministry of Education, should safeguard the interests of the students by providing them with adequate sanitizers, adequate face masks.
I choose to go back to school because many students who are at home may engage in a lot of bad companies, and they have a lot of time and will be idling And also, at home, there is less discipline than at school.
I think we are losing a generation by continuing to keep these people at home, and it would be better if they went to school. And I think the grade 4, class 8 and form 4 candidates have shown us that it can work.
We are talking about reopening of school. In the few days, we have seen teachers and students dying in school, and a number of them infected. So my question is, are we happy as a nation? We are not ready for reopening.
Personally, I think it's time for us to go back to school. We have stayed home long enough. We've lost a lot, and we are continuing losing a lot.
I think we should go back to school, even despite the corona pandemic. You see, when we're at home, we tend to cover less topics, and even if we have the online classes, they're not much effective as compared to one-on-one classes with the teacher.
Janet, what is your reaction to that? In fact, one of them says there's less discipline at home compared to school.
It's really funny. But then I think out of the persons you have interviewed there, it's interesting that all the children that you have interviewed are saying, let us go back to school.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's good to listen to the children. They're telling us we feel safer at school. We also want our own progress. I think because they're also suffering from fear. They think they're losing a lot. They don't know what is happening to them. A lot of them that I've talked to have said, I don't believe I'm going back. I'm going to repeat Form 1. So I think it's also good to listen to them. And the only thing that we can do to these children is to do our responsibility as adults, try and control the spread of COVID-19. And I was speaking to some teachers and they were saying, it is very interesting how children will be coming from home with their masks in their bags. So the indiscipline is out there in the community. But when they get to the gate of the school, they know they must put on their masks. So if we can have that kind of discipline out here at the community level, we can really help ourselves to probably control the spread of the virus, and so that we can make all our children happy. But then again, I'm also thinking about a dilemma that is about I don't even know whether the government has thought about this, but it's really sad that about 227 schools, private schools, will not open in January. They are shut, and they're shut completely. And we're talking about a population of about 54,000 children that were attending private schools. They're not going to be attending schools. And I'm just wondering what education for all measure is the government putting in place so that post-COVID we do not lose any child. Those that are attending private schools, are they welcome in the government facilities, or what protocols obtained there so that we do not have a generation that is stranded, people who lose another 1 year trying to locate a school, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And Governor, you see, I'm seeing a situation where schools are being closed almost in staccatos. You hear there's an outbreak of COVID-19, that school has been closed for 2 weeks, another one has been closed for 2 weeks. What does that then do to the teaching fraternity, even the students themselves? Because if a school has been closed, a neighboring school is probably continuing with the syllabus. How then do these ones who are closed for 2 weeks catch up with the same people they're supposed to sit exams with?
So we must come to the realization that COVID has disrupted our lives. Not only our social life, but even our education programs. So that one, we must appreciate that fact that it is disrupted. Yeah. And we have to be adaptive as teachers and as a society so that we can live with this COVID, because we are not sure how long it will be with us. So, of course, we have had cases where schools have been closed, and while others are still going on. So that is a challenge. And I had indicated earlier on that as even we complain that we have lost on learning time, students have lost, we are losing as a society, we are losing as a country. Still, I've said the lives of our children are very important, because if a case has been reported in a school, even if you force those students to remain in school, there will be panic. Psychologically, they will not be able to settle. they will not be able to learn, because I think the environment is also very important. And when we talk of environment, it starts from the mind, how you prepare the learners psychologically for learning. So I think it is very important that we close at times, we give them a break, and then we do some counseling sessions, and then we bring them back to class. So it's possible to fast track. And I've said teachers have to work extra hard, give in more time, so that these students who have closed school can still recover even the lost time and learn with their cohorts at the same rate.
All right.
So it's possible to do that.
We had also spoken to the governor for Machakos, Dr. Alfred Mutua, and also Wilson Sosion on this same issue, whether we are ready to open schools. Here's what they had to say.
I believe the schools need to be open.
Yeah.
This is a choice. We look at international standards from Australia, the UK, different African countries, the United States. As ndugu yangu
But social
here
distancing
said,
has not been achieved yet. There are some schools that are still going to be in tents. Learners are facing a very challenging time.
Being in a tent is actually safer than being inside a building because of the flow of air. So let's not ridicule the tents, because it is actually better to be in an open environment with the children. The problem will be the teachers, as Dr. Nikal said. Most of the children have and we have also, science has to tell us why. Is it because of the vaccinations? Children are not dying in large numbers or getting very sick as adults.
For preparations of schools, then now the buck stops with the government. Because the teachers and learners must be safe. I think all of us, we know that is the recommendation from the World Health Organization. So government must spend, avail resources. Let us not talk of no money. If there was 2 billion for death, there should be money for all this implementation of this protocol. Every child must be given a quality masks, availed and procured through schools by the government of Kenya. It's not very expensive. It's 75 shillings it's 70 shillings, 2 masks for a period of 4-5 months.
Janet, infrastructure is still a big concern, even just basic masks for the students. And you've heard some of the parents who were speaking to us earlier on saying, we don't have the money. We've been pressed by COVID-19. We don't have enough money to take our children to school. So how then can this be resolved going forward?
No, it is disturbing absolutely how our very good government is reneging on its own responsibility of ensuring that every child is guaranteed their right to education. And looking at how other things are happening, I would really have expected that maybe education and health remain our priority. Health because, we're about saving lives, and that is what the pandemic is about. But education because it is life. Education really is what holds this fabric together. And it is the life of children that we are talking about here. So really listening and a very honest conversation here is that the government has not done much in terms of trying to support the schools and the education fraternity to fight COVID-19. It's not fine, it's not fair, and I want to see the explanation that is going to be given in January, because we were here when we opened and there was no money. The money kept coming. As I was speaking to some teachers and telling them, we are still being told that money is coming, and money has never found us. So it's really not good, and we really have to prioritize education if we have to appear like a serious government. And we're talking about the lives of children here. It is not fine. And I also want to say that looking at the discussions that are going on and really looking at the focus of the Ministry of Education, I want to really call out the leadership at the Ministry of Education and really ask, where is your focus today? We would be sitting here and discussing serious issues about schools have been partially opened for this while. These are the lessons we have learned from that. I'm imagining they would have probably even called the heads of schools to just harvest those lessons so that it can prepare for the larger opening of the schools. That has not happened. It is disturbing enough to learn that the CAS of Education tonight is the head of the BBI youth. It does not work that way, because those two things cannot go together. We are at a very serious period where we are expecting a lot of thinking and a lot of leadership to be going through, so that we are looking at how we do things in January. But that is not what is happening. It is not polite. And in January, this is what is going to happen. Parents are not going to be able to take their children to school because the school fees, parents are not going to be able to pay. And the government is not bothered to really even attempt to provide some guideline and say, please do not charge parents, all this, because the heads of schools are also constrained. They have been slapped with these guidelines, and they have to make sure that the children are safe. Do not expect that you will transport children from all over, dump them in a school, and the teachers and the heads do not take responsibility. They will take the responsibility. How? By charging the parents. What will happen? Children will be sent home, and therefore no education will be happening. We risk sidelining so many children, and it is just because of how our own government and the Ministry of Education especially is going about this issue. We want to call for real leadership. Let the ministry settle. It is a serious issue that we are dealing with. And if the ministry wants the parents, you've heard some parents saying, I do not think that I will take my child to school. Can we see some leadership? Let's begin seeing reports that encourage that we are ready. Let the ministry begin by telling us we are ready, by saying these are the lessons we have learned, this is what we have done. Ordinary capacity building to parents. Because if you see how some of the infections were happening in schools, you would see that even parents have not been capacitated. If they're sensitizing them, what can they do in their own community? A lot of things probably might not need money, but when parents' capacity is not built to that level, then they're likely to think that we want government to come and bring us A, B, C, and D. Yet, probably, there are innovations around the community that can happen to ensure that education schools is opening and it doesn't become that expensive.
Governor, is there any way the county governments can then collaborate with the national government? We know only ECD has been devolved, really, but is there any way you can collaborate to even support just the parents? Like in your county, for example, I'm sure there are some parents who've lost their jobs, schools that are not ready infrastructurally. Is there any way that the county governments can collaborate?
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. And I indicated earlier on that as much as we want to say it is a responsibility of the government to take care of our children, to take care of all of us, I think all of us have a role to play in ensuring that we are safe and that our children are safe. So we have a responsibility even as county government, as much as we have a very specific mandate that we have been given by the Constitution. But it will not stop us from ensuring, because as much as we are taking care of children in ECDs, children in primary school, in secondary school, in universities are still our children. The resources that we are using in our county governments are resources that come from the public, the same people that the national government is having. So we need to be very honest with ourselves, even as we are preparing to open in January. There is little action that is going on in terms of preparing the schools. I think the time that we have between now and January should be the time to build resilience in our schools. First of all, by strengthening the leadership that we have in those schools. Teachers should be trained on risk management and even in leadership and coordination, cooperation and partnership. That is very important, and that one has never been done. So we are waiting for January for schools to open, and teachers will be there, children will be there, and nothing will be going on. Secondly, we should also be thinking of expanding the facilities and the infrastructure that we have in the schools. And we are ready as county governments to support the national government, even in setting up temporary tents where the classes can take place, where teaching learning can take place. We are also in the process, like in Bomet, we are putting in place plans to expand sanitation and supply of water to the schools, because we require a lot of water. We are also building the capacity of our medical facilities, and even attaching specific medical facilities to specific institutions so that they can support the schools when they open in January. We are also putting in place a lot of support, because we need to prepare these children that are coming from the community are affected. Probably they have lost relatives. Probably they will also be coming from families where cases have been confirmed. And once they get to school, there will be stigma and so forth. Maybe they will be isolated because they say, you're in a nyumba COVID or something like that. So we have to put in place structures to support these children psychologically in terms of counseling. And that is an area where we are investing. We are also producing masks so that we can supply to these children in schools. We have a facility in Bomet, one of our VTCs, where we are producing masks.
This will be for free?
For free.
Okay.
And that will be supplied to schools so that we can support. So we have a big role to play, even in terms of sensitizing the community and even the teachers, and bringing everybody on board. Okay. So I think it is our responsibility, both the national and the county government, to see that the schools are supported so that they can open in January.
All right, we still have a lot coming through. Janet, I'll come to you in just a bit. But online here, I see Fred Osiro says schools should just be open in January as scheduled. Many teachers, especially BOM, have lost their jobs because of this situation. Students also need to prepare for exams. A lot is at stake here. James Wanzala says majority will not be ready due to the effect of COVID-19 on their incomes. Currently, majority of Kenyans are struggling to put food on the table and pay rent for those renting. Where will school fees and other school opening expenses money even come from? We have Gator David, who says schools have to be open. COVID is not leaving anytime soon. The Ministry of Education behaves as if there won't be COVID in January. We need to adapt to the new norm. Let's see here again. Stephen Mulwa says, my daughter is in class 7 and I'm ready to take her back to school, but she needs new school uniform. She has grown. I was shocked to see her sharing her clothes with her mother. Steve is watching from Kitengela. Thanks, Steve. Let's see. Felix Njika says, going back to school during the coronavirus pandemic has elicited a jumble of emotions for teachers, students, and parents who have both wanted to see kids back in school buildings, but also have feared the risk of contracting COVID-19. That's Felix Njika there. See, Matthew Zondoro says, to me, I still feel the opening of schools must be reviewed, being the fact that the vaccine for COVID-19 is not here yet. The government would have to find ways of first giving free jabs to children and teachers before allowing them back to school. We should not risk it. Here's what else they had to say on video as well.
Very many students have developed very bad characters over these long holidays, or rather since schools were closed sometime in March. How then are the teachers prepared or empowered to remold these students back to the shape they were in before closing school? Thank you.
According to me, I think we are not ready to reopen schools in January. This is because this year was a very tough year financially to parents, so they are not financially stable to be able to settle their school fees. Secondly, I think the schools are not ready with the necessary facilities to be able to handle an outbreak of COVID-19.
We really wish to go back to school, clear our syllabus, join Form 4 and do our exams. We really hope it will come through as the way the government is directing. We really hope everything will be okay, and we really wish the corona numbers will have gone down. Thank you.
The fact remains that Kenya, the cases of COVID is increasing every now and then. People are dying of COVID. The fact remains that way. And our children are going to meet others from different places, from different regions. So we still have a challenge.
We can say that COVID is something that's going to end soon. So it's something that we have to learn to live with it, like HIV. But we're going to take the precautions. Yeah, this was for sanitizing, wearing masks. Yeah, and be careful.
It's Precious. I'm ready to go to school in January 4th.
We are hoping to get back to school as soon as possible. It will be difficult maintaining social distancing at schools. I think the government should address the challenges before reopening schools.
These diseases can be able to be taken care of at school, as many diseases have been, like the nurses and the dispensaries in schools. And I also think that the government should put in measures that can be able to control the spread of COVID in schools, like assign money for the schools to be able to build more classes for the schools with fields that the students can be able to learn there. So yes, I think it's very nice so that we can go to school and continue with our studies.
I'm so excited to go back to school because it's not boring.
I wish I would say that when I was younger. Now, Dr. Umo Luga, Chief Officer Health, Nairobi County, says schools play a significant development role amongst children, adolescents, and the youth, much more than an educational role. It is in school that people learn leadership, discipline, sports, teamwork, resilience, etc. These may not be taught virtually. This is the difficult context to factor in the discussion amidst the ravage and damage of COVID-19. Janet, what do you think?
Absolutely. And what COVID has done is that it has reinforced the place of school in the lives of children. You know, every other time that when we made noise about opening of school, people thought that these activists are just, but now it is clear that really school plays a very critical role, even in terms of protection. Look at the few months that children have been home, and we are talking about thousands and thousands of girls have been pregnant. We are talking about thousands of boys that have gotten into drugs, and it's really, really disturbing. And I think listening to children getting very excited about going to school, and sometimes as adults we think that maybe they don't like school, is really very important feedback that we are getting from children. And tonight I think the three things I would really ask is that for government to enforce the compliance to the COVID-19 protocol so that at least we can ensure that the numbers are going down, and also looking at supporting schools to ensure that they are compliant so that then parents are also feeling safe and the learners are also safe, even the teachers are safe to some extent, and then also regulating the cost. As we think about reopening of schools, I really implore on government to pronounce itself on the cost of education. We are going to leave so many children behind. You've heard what parents are saying. It is a genuine concern. You know, sometimes people sitting in Nairobi might think that asking a parent of 2,000 shillings is something so easy. 2,000 shillings is the whole month's income for a certain family. So it is just not a joke. So it's really important for government to occupy its place in the right to education of every child. And especially in this country where we have a Basic Education Act that is talking about free and compulsory education, basic education, all the way from ECD to secondary school. I really want to see the government exerting itself and coming in to regulate. And it is not only for public schools, because in this country the reality is that if all the private schools were to shut down, government cannot contain all the number of school-going children that really need to be offered an education. So government really needs even to look that way and support the private partners so that we can ensure that by the time we are opening, every child has a place to go to school.
Okay. And Governor, this is happening at a time when we are rolling out the CBC. Is it practical to do that now, considering it's very involving?
Thank you. I think you have mentioned CPC. CPC, I have my own reservation, and I think we'll need another time when we can discuss. Because I'm a specialist in curriculum development, and I have issues already in terms of what we are implementing as CPC in Kenya. And I will give you 10% success of CPC in Kenya.
10%.
And given a chance, I will qualify my statement. Because of reasons I've analyzed, I've seen all the documents, how we have developed, and I'm a bit worried, Trevor. And sometimes I wonder whether the people that we have in the Ministry of Education are serious. In fact, it has reached a point where I think I'm saying Amina was right when he said we are not ready for this thing. And given a chance, I will qualify that.
Please go ahead right now.
I don't know whether we'll have enough time because I have to take you through the processes.
Why you given it 10%?
Okay, Trevor, when you go to a doctor, she normally sends you to a laboratory. So that we don't prescribe malaria tablets when you have pneumonia or something else. So I've seen the documents that we are relying on, informing the changes and the reforms that we have done as a country, all the way starting with they call it summative evaluation of 2009. And then it came to Professor Odiambo report. And then whatever they are calling sessional paper number 2 of 2015, and then the basic education curriculum framework. Now, Trevor, it is very interesting. I went through the NEET analysis report. And this is not the opinion of the Council of Governors, it is my own opinion, and I'm not speaking as a governor, but I'm speaking as a curriculum expert.
Yeah.
That NEET analysis is not NEET analysis, and I would dare anyone to challenge me. Read that report. Even a layman can tell that it's not NEET analysis. So I don't know where we got our needs, because we have gotten a wrong prescription.
So CBC is not
to
the
CPC.
answer.
CPC should be no. It will be a total disaster for us as a country.
Okay.
Based on that, you analyze all the other documents, even the framework itself, full of errors. And the framework, first of all, was supposed to give a very clear definition of the concepts, especially CPC. But when you see the description and the definitions given in that document are not correct. You go to the theoretical. If an expert who is coming up with a curriculum cannot differentiate between a learning theory and a theory of curriculum, then I don't know what direction we are taking, Trevor.
Yeah.
It means we have quacks who are masquerading as experts in curriculum, and we have entrusted the lives of our children to the wrong people.
Okay.
So I think we may need a national discourse on this issue, because we are headed to a disaster.
Okay.
We should have learned from other countries. For example, South Africa adopted this as a way of reforming their curriculum after the apartheid curriculum that was designed along the racial lines. But after 2 years, there were questions in South Africa. We cannot compare ourselves with countries that are endowed with resources. There are countries that can afford to take children from whatever grade 1 to whatever level, even without examining. But we cannot afford that in terms of the resources. We are already struggling. And let me tell you, not because I went through 844 system, but I think it was the best system in this country.
Okay.
But what we did, you know, and to be honest, even when you see the documents and whatever they are talking against 844, it is our policies. Okay. Because this was an education, and the philosophy was education for self-reliance.
Okay.
It was supposed to prepare the learners. Each level was supposed to be terminal, and you are equipped with basic skills where you can start your own business or do something like that.
So we are not ready.
But we went back on that through the policies that we have put in place. We removed technical subjects. We emphasize so much on theory and not practical. And by the way, the success even of this CPC is based on examinations. What we examined, what we are assessing. It will dictate what the teachers will be doing.
Okay.
So I'm giving 10% success of CPC. Now come to the challenge that we are facing relating with CPC. We have a challenge. And the reason why we have a challenge, we have to understand the underlying theories of this innovation. One, we have the social theory, which says that learning can only take place in a social context. So if we are saying we don't have our children interacting, of course that's already a limitation. And somebody, a doctor from Nairobi, had mentioned something close to that. That beyond the teacher standing before the children and teaching, there are other aspects that we cannot teach. The children learn by interaction. Then the other one is on constructivism, where the child has to interact with the environment and learn from that environment. So if we are limiting the children moving out and interacting with the community, experiencing things, then CPC will not work. Because those are the two underlying theories that informs CPC. So maybe, Trevor, given a chance, and I will dare anyone, especially on data analysis, what we have captured in our curriculum framework, the way we have prepared our teachers talk even to the experts themselves. I've interacted with one.
Yeah.
And he has no idea what CPC is.
Okay.
And these are the people who are supposed to be preparing and training our teachers.
All right. So I see Honorable Wilson Sosion here, who's also the NAT Secretary General, saying 10% is on the higher side. But we're talking about really the COVID-19 and the school operation system. Janet, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, a debate can go any direction, and everybody is entitled to their own opinion. But I want to say that I do not want to criticize what the governor has said, and especially being a decorated educationist, you know. But I also think that maybe he has been a little bit busy with his governor role, so that maybe a lot probably has bypassed him, because there's a lot that has gone on in terms of thought leadership, you know, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And I also think it's a bit unfortunate if you look at the people that are heading the various institutions, their professors, their doctors, and so I think they're experts in their own right. But I want to say that the change is not easy. You know, and always when you want to bring a decision, even now what's happening with BBI, there are people who are pro and there are others who are this other way. So and the idea is everybody coming to the table and everybody putting their thoughts here, because there is nobody who has got a monopoly of knowledge in anything. So when we sit down and you bring your concept and everyone brings their concept, and then we get one way forward. But I would tell you for a fact is that I'm also a proud product of 844, but I think there are certain criticisms of 844 that surely we might not want to live with, and I like saying that I sometimes sit here and trying to feel privileged that maybe I went through high school, I got very good grades, and I went to the university, but I also think about those people that were with me probably at primary school, very gifted in other ways that were not tested. But the system tested me in only one area that I was good at and decided to move with me through and through. And moving with me through and through means that even government supported me, because I also got Higher Education Loans Board based on that assessment that was done at that level. Meaning, what I like about the concept of developing children's competencies and looking beyond the traditional what 844 taught and the cramming of facts and so on and so forth. Can we give an opportunity for everybody? As long as we are getting a system that gives every child an opportunity to fully explore their potential, I am in. And I think that is what CBC is about. It's about giving every child an opportunity, developing every child's potential, if we want to build a society that has everybody equal to the other person. But 844 as currently is, and I also think that he's done a very good analysis in terms of probably some of the failures of 844 are due to us, the way we went mutilating. You know, it's not as it was thought out. We went mutilating for factors such as lack of resources. Sometimes I was doing home science, but I didn't have my teacher there who was examining me for the stool. Did not even have a hammer, did not have a nail. Themselves, they don't know how to take me through constructing a stool. So what happened to children? We went, bought stools and brought, and we were examined. So I think 844 also suffered due to resource unavailability, and also how we are inconsistent in maintaining our policies. And so CBC might suffer the same fate. It could be a good framework, but it might suffer the same fate as 844 if government does not deliberately fund the implementation of CBC. Okay, we're running out of time here. I'd like to get closing remarks from you, but let me sample some views that are coming through here on Twitter. Lukoe Frida says, I'm a teacher too, and I think that the sooner or later we still need to start somewhere. We have had the whole year to conduct our assessment and learn safety measures. It is time we give it a shot. Let's see here. Engineer Lazaro Kanyambok says, in fact, January will be chaotic in most learning institutions. Ministry has done totally nothing to convince parents to send their children into those waiting disasters. Okay, there's another one here. Kiprotich Phil says, I'm struggling to understand how government is prepared to reopen schools come next year. I'm imagining how my immediate public school will run without sufficient resources from national and county government. We should be genuine with ourselves. Let's see. Alex Owiti says, schools can't replace parenting responsibilities. COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the parenting failure underbelly. The rogueness of kids is a reflection of the society. Parents want to abdicate their responsibilities to teachers. Okay? Very harsh verdicts there on parents. Brenda Resian says, if schools reopen, how will the small children maintain social distance, especially from grade 3 downwards?
See a final one here. Charlo says going to school will be so hard as the curve of the pandemic is unpredictable. And also Kip Koech says parents partially ready. Kindly ask Governor Barchok on mask production. His government had procured some Polytechnic to assist in production, but masks have not yet been delivered. He had already answered that earlier on. Let's see if we have a final one here. Vincent Maloba says, I'm more than ready to take my daughter back to school. She had just joined Form 1 when the pandemic struck. And the governor, there's another question here that keeps coming up. It's from your people of Bomet. They say that, are you aware that the doctors are on strike in your county, and what are you doing about it?
Thank you, Trevor. That may not be related, but I've said all this, we attack the challenge that we are facing from all the sides.
Yeah.
So doctors also have a role to play. And there are issues to do with promotion, and I think that was the main issue that we are having with our doctors. And we have already addressed the issue. And I think they are back to work. But they are yet to give an official communication, because the issue that was between us and them is promotion. So we have addressed that issue.
Okay.
And I want to appreciate what the doctors are doing, and they are put their lives on the line to ensure that all of us are safe. And I think it is very important that we support them, and we also equip them with the relevant equipment so that they can also protect themselves as they are giving us services. So that is very important. And then secondly, maybe if you allow me, I want to maybe be very clear on my stand on CPC, that I'm not totally against it. But I think the way we have done it and adopted this, I think is not proper.
Okay.
Yeah, there are aspects of 844 that were not good. There are also aspects of CPC that are not good. CPC is very expensive compared to 844.
Yeah.
So I think the proper way should have been analysis of what worked for 844 and what did not work for 844, and that should have been the starting point. Otherwise, having an almost total overhaul, because even when you hear of reorientation of teachers, it is not reorientation of teachers. It should be a total training, because there is a paradigm shift. The emphasis that we used to put in teaching now goes to learning. Instead of content, we are emphasizing on outcome. And I've said the success of CPC depends on how we are doing the assessment. So I think it's unrealistic when we talk of the orientation of teachers. So I can guarantee you that it will fail because of the human resource. That is one area. And then the other one is the resources that we have. We require a lot of resources, both in terms of human and in terms of infrastructure, because of the different methods of delivery in teaching, very expensive, project work and so forth. So that one has to be very clear. But all the same, I think all is not lost. We can still sit down and chart the way for the country. And it is very important, and I want to urge everybody to listen. You know, I agree with Janet that no one has a monopoly of knowledge, and all of us have to sit. We have to agree. We have to take on board experts who can also advise, because I think a curriculum has a context. So sometimes when we borrow and just copy and paste, it will give us problems finally.
All right. 30 seconds, Janet, closing remarks.
No, thank you so much for always having us, and I want to end by really taking a concept that the governor has said, the work they are doing, the health, sector to support schools. It's really very exciting, and I would really admire if probably other governors could come in and support schools. We know that the health sector is really overstretched, considering that this is a pandemic, but if there are ways that the health sector can partner with schools, and especially boarding schools, so that we have a nurse or someone, a specialist in schools, to just support in diagnosis and really inspiring confidence in the learners, especially because we know some primary schools are not resourced to probably be able to afford a nurse. And this is not happening only in Kenya. I know in Ghana the government has seconded health specialists in every schools, so that they can be able to address some of these things. So I think these are critical partnerships partnerships that, if explored, can go a long way in supporting the reopening of schools.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have to leave it there for now. I see here Tabu Charles. He says, Chairperson Bunge la Wazalendo. He says he recommends that schools should be opened, but Monday to Tuesday, class 1 to 3, then class 4 to 8. That's his way. I want to thank you all for making time. Dr. Hilary Barchok, Bomet Governor, and also former teacher, and Janet Mudhoni Ouko, education rights activist, and former CEC for education right here in Nairobi. And thank you so much for all the feedback that has come through. We couldn't read all of them, but we tried as much as we could to squeeze in the match that we have. Let's do this again on Monday. My name is Trevor Ombija. Special thanks to Wilson, who was our sign language interpreter tonight, Wilson Mushora. We'll see you again next week. Bye for now.